I get it, believe me. Adopting a kid might be the last thing on your to-do list, or even remotely considering it, but probably not list. And the attitude of a lot of children in Skyrim is not helping to change your mind. The thing is, there are some out there who they really do deserve a better life, and that's what I want to focus on. So today, I will be listing my top 5 kids who need adoption the most in Skyrim. Let's get into it. Starting off with number 5, we have Blaze. He's a young boy living at Katla's farm just outside of Solitude, and arguably, he's the one doing most of the work. I mean, when I came here, there were 4 adults standing around the place, but, if they weren't leaning up against one of the houses to take a rest, a break, then they were chit-chatting among themselves. But then, you first talk to Blaze. He says he takes care of the goats, the horses, the chicken, and the garden, a lot of things, not mentioning other animals like the pigs and the ibis, or all of the supply runs that he has to make for food and things like hay and seeds. So he's a stable boy and he works very hard at it. Katla let him work here after both of his parents had been killed. They were in the Imperial Legion and they both died during an ambush. Now, it sounds nice of Katla to give him a place to stay, but for all of the work that he does, he isn't even allowed to sleep in either of the houses, which, by the way, you go in, they've got plenty of space for one extra bed. Instead, he has to sleep outside next to the horses, on a small sheet of hay. If it's raining and lightning outside, it doesn't matter, he cannot come in. Not to mention his sleeping spot is right at the entrance to the farm, so if someone wants to come in the night and kidnap him, who knows? No one from inside is going to hear a thing or be alarmed. It's tough living for this boy, but offering to adopt him as your son really does clear the storm in his mind. He lights up and he says, "Really? You mean it? Wow, thanks, Pa." And after saying goodbye to the adults and to Katla for, at least giving him something to do all this time, he then makes his way to his new home. Number 4, we have Sophie, the flower girl of Windhelm, alone and very cold, and sometimes stepped on by the other citizens. Quite literally, get off, come on, oafs. She struggles plenty as it is, selling flowers and flower baskets on the streets to afford just enough food for herself each day. But it's a slow business. She waits long hours in front of the door that leads down to the docks, hoping that someone will buy something, but they rarely do. A lot of days go by where she doesn't sell any at all. She has to do this because both of her parents are gone. Her mother died when she was very little, and so it was just her and her dad for a while, but then he joined the Stormcloak Rebellion and then died in the war, leaving her alone. So now it's a sad existence wandering the Grey Quarter with the other Dark Elves. They pity her because they can see that unkindness is not only reserved for them. And Sophie can't help but feel like an outcast in a city of her own people. So it's cold in more ways than one. And even worse are the chills at night that she has to feel that keep the left side of her body so numb. That's the side that she likes to sleep on, which always wakes up in great pain. This is just outside of Naranya's house, just across from the side door. It's not clear if Naranya knows this girl sleeps out here, and that's not good, because rumor is there's a serial killer who's been stalking the streets. If this person finds her, little can be done to save her life. So, if Sophie has a future, it'll be up to a kind soul that's willing to take her out of this city. Number 3, we have Sisli. You can find her at Rorikstead. Unlike the others, she does actually have a family, but it's not good. It's an abusive family. So her twin sister and her father in total. And she has to take a salt from both of them. When I first arrived, her sister Brita was yelling at her to weed the garden and that she'd be in trouble if she didn't. But it's actually Brita herself who was originally supposed to do it. She was just trying to shirk her duties. And if you talk to her, she doesn't hide her distaste at all for her sister. She says, "If you beat up my sister Sisli, I won't tell." She'll also say, "Sisli's barely worthy to walk in my shadow." So the girls, they don't get along. Okay, so how about talking to the father for more information? You approach him, and the first thing he says, before you can even say hi, is, "Do yourself a favor and don't have children. They're good for nothing at all." He's a bitter man, calling them useless, expecting them to tend to the fields for the rest of their lives, like that's their only purpose in life. That's probably the only thing that would make him happy, really. So you finally speak with Sisli, and immediately you can see that she's different than the other two. She admires you, and wishes she also could be an adventurer. She's so much nicer to be around, and if you get her talking, she'll then explain that she has to take beatings from her sister and her father. This is actually why she's been learning magic from Joanne, one of the village's elders, that maybe one day she'll be strong enough to defend herself from all the punches. But luckily, a more immediate response is possible. If you stick an arrow in the back of Lemkill, the dad, and make sure no one sees you and maybe stuff him in the fire like he deserves, but still have no one see you, then these girls won't have a guardian anymore. So you can now adopt Sissel and let her live somewhere safe where there isn't domestic violence. Now, Brida's fate will be up to you. I mean, you can argue that she's only nasty because her father was to her, and behaving like this was the only thing she knew, sort of a defense mechanism in her own way. But, well, what if she doesn't change, and she keeps on harassing her sister? Is it fair to her? So, adopting both of them, that will be up to you, but Sissel definitely deserves it the most. Number 2, we have Lucia, certainly too young to be a beggar on the streets of Whiterun. But that is the reality. Apparently she used to live on a farm with her mother, but she died when Lucia was very young. Now her aunt and uncle took over the farm, but that's all they cared about, the farm. The property, not her at all, so they kicked her out. Said she wasn't good for anything. Somehow she ended up in Whiterun, and now she just wanders the streets like a ghost. No one pays her any mind. No one talks to her or gives her anything. She does like to hang around the Gildergreen tree, and that's really where she sort of resumes this ethereal occupation. She looks up at anyone who passes through the park, stares at them the entire time thinking, maybe someone might like my company, but no one says anything to her. They walk right by her like nothing is there. If someone on the odd chance does speak to her, it's a guard who passes by and says, "Hands to yourself, sneak thief." Oh, a pickpocket. Why else would she follow people around the way that she does? But really, it's for a proper meal and a decent bed. That's all. If you talk to her, she'll ask for just 1 gold, please. This is actually advice she took from Brenuin, another of the town's beggars, who apparently is the only one who's been nice to her since coming here. And that's fine, but the trouble is, Brenuin is an alcoholic, very bad, and gets mean when he doesn't have a drink. So, following his advice, is this Lucia's fate as well? Staying poor and homeless until the only relief she gets is the temporary love and warmth, but long-lasting emptiness from the bottle? Well, hopefully not. Maybe a different start, as someone's daughter will inspire her to go on to do great things. And quickly before number 1, we have an honorable mention, and that is the 4 children stuck at the Honor Hall Orphanage in Riften. So this is Runa, Hror, Samuel, and Francois. Obviously living under the harsh rule of Grelid, that's a terrible place to be, but that said, I didn't make any of them an official number, just because if you do kill Grelid and Constance for a good measure, well, at least these kids now have their own housing in a major city, so there's relatively safe. And sticking as a team, if they do, well, it'll be up to them to decide how they want to grow up. Not perfect, but it's a little bit better. Maybe that means worshipping the Dark Brotherhood, because that's definitely who they think saved them. Or maybe it means worshipping... And number 1, we have Alazan. He's the only kid you can find in Dawnstar. If you can catch him, that is, because he is always on the move. He runs food and supplies to all of the miners in town. Just back and forth all day. It's very tiring, which is why he says, "Whew, I'm worn out." Or another one is, "I'm so tired." It's exhausting work, and it doesn't make him any money. But what it does give him is permission to sleep in the inn over by the wall, somewhat close to the fire. That's his life, running all day, every day, just to earn him that one spot on the stone floor. Why does he have to live this way? Well, it wasn't always like this. Apparently, he used to go on voyages with his father, who was a sailor. It was hard, but rewarding living. The thing is, his father eventually became very sick when they were out on a voyage, and the crew knew it wasn't good, so they dropped him and his son off at Dawnstar, and they just left. And shortly after, what they thought would happen did happen. The father, he died. This left Alazan alone in Dawnstar to fend for himself. Now, he was always pretty good at running food and water to the sailors while they were working and making sure they were comfortable, so he did again what he knew best. The miners here, they love it. They love getting that kind of thing. But this kind of work, it's not sustainable. It's very taxing, and you don't want to be weak in this kind of weather. It'll break you down. So, if you offer to adopt Alizan, you can almost feel his heart slow down as he takes a deep breath. He thanks you, and then makes one last trip to the mines to wish his friends a good season and a prosperous dig, but that's all. And like the other kids who you visited, he now has a new shot at a good life. Maybe they will grow up to be an adventurer, just like you. And there you have it, my top 5 kids who need adoption the most in Skyrim. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. And down below, please tell me, is there someone else you would like to add to this list? All right, thank you very much for what? Tag! You're it! Okay. You're not into it? Sorry, I'm not either. It's stupid. Stupid. Don't touch me! I'm running! Oh, yay!